W253DF Memphis, Flynn Broadcasting Stations.
It's time for Wolo and Friends on Sports 56, presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here is your host, the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
And a welcome to the land of palm trees. Oh, yes, we are in Boca at the Renaissance Hotel, awaiting tomorrow's game with FAU. That, by the way, capturing national attention because it will be on CBS Sports, the CBS Sports. Tigers are practicing now. I'll get into that a little bit. And we will be discussing that game with Bryant Dacus and a whole lot more. That ends our week every Friday. In the meantime, the Grizzlies play tonight against the Atlanta Hawks. And the Grizzlies just made an announcement. They have signed Wenyen Gabriel, a 6'9" forward who's been playing a bunch in the G League with the Wisconsin Herd. He played at Kentucky. I don't think he played a whole lot because I honestly... I don't remember him that well. I'm going to go to my NBA, one of my NBA guys, because we're going to be talking to Andy Schiffman at 10:25. The other extraordinary producer, that would be Zach Boyd. What do you know about Wenyen Gabriel, my friend? Much?
Yeah, he played in Kentucky. He's under Coach Cal. He's also was on that Lakers team that beat the Grizzlies last year. He wasn't much of a factor, but he was on the team, so...
Well, I did notice in the Grizzlies report that Kennard is got left knee soreness.
That's
so
correct.
Does Triple J. So this guy might play tonight. Honestly, here's the thing about the job that I think Taylor Jenkins has done. You're talking about now there won't be anybody that was originally going to be on the roster as a starter or a rotation player this year that will play against Atlanta tonight. And, you know, the Grizzlies, I think they're like 5.5-point underdogs in this game, something like that. But it's just incredible to me that these guys come in and compete with like one practice, if there's a practice at all, and that you've got no one, zero, from your original roster that's going to play in the game tonight. That to me is just stunning. Now, LaRavia, I should say, LaRavia was in the works, but he was not going to be a rotation player. So,
Jaren is supposed to play tonight. He's not on the injury report.
Oh, I thought he was on the doubtful list with Kennard tonight.
No, that was Gigi Jackson. He is questionable.
Oh, that's G.G. Jackson. Okay. So Triple J will play tonight. It's still incredible. I think Atlanta does not have they're the kid from Oklahoma, the great shooter.
Trae Young.
Trae Young. He's out, correct?
Yes. Then Nneka, not Nneka, was Okoro. I forgot to pronounce his man's name. Hold on. Let me find it.
Well, here's the bottom line on that. I mean, the Grizzlies played Philly last time without Embiid or without Maxey. Trae Young is the key to Atlanta. He's their best player. He's not playing. I'm not sure. I mentioned this to Pete Prenica. We'll talk a little bit about it with Andy Schiffman. I'm not sure I have ever seen the amount of injuries in one single season to key players around the NBA. Even LeBron left with an ankle injury 2 games ago. Last night, Steph Curry left the game with an ankle injury. I don't know what his status is. We know Karl Anthony Towns now is going to have meniscus surgery. They think he'll be back early playoff rounds. If it's not the first round, though, you take a chance, right? Although I think there's enough talent with Edwards and Gobert that they can make it true. But it's just incredible the amount of injuries that we are seeing. Also, we'll, in just a couple of minutes, talk some baseball. We talked a bunch of Major League Baseball with our guru, Tim Doolin. That was last week. This week, we'll get into college baseball a little bit. The Tigers and Matt Reiser, the SEC. How will Ole Miss Arkansas and Tennessee fare, who are the favorites in that league, who are the favorites in all of college baseball. Tim Doolin will come your way in just a couple of minutes. So the Tigers are practicing now in the FAU gym that seats all of 2,900 people. Think about that for a minute. 2,900 people. My producer and engineer, Danny O'Brien, went to practice this morning and said it looks smaller than it does on TV. It looks small on TV. It's literally smaller than the White Station High School gym. It'll be packed tomorrow. It'll be a CBS game. And the Tigers have to worry about two critical things with FAU. First of all, they play as a team. If you look at their numbers, they have like 150 more assists than their competition. They really play as a unit. If they don't go inside to the 7-1 Russian center Vladislav Golden, then they skip past to the wings really quick. They figure out ways, and they have so many guys. I think it's 7 guys who have hit 30 or more threes. They shoot them at a 36% clip. They're really a great scheme team to watch. And that's why, they became the darlings last year when they made their run, and they shouldn't have beaten Memphis in the first round of the NCAA. So, again, we'll go back to that timeout that irks me and will forever. But they're really a beautiful team to watch play team basketball. So the Tigers, I know, are working today. I'm doing a little bit better job inside on Golden. He really hurt them, but the Tigers did a great job of taking away the threes in that game a few weeks ago when they won by 4 at FedEx Forum, 78-74. So the keys for this thing will be, can you do a little bit better job inside, keeping Golden off? I think the Tigers are a little bit quicker, better in the fast break than the Owls, so you're going to look at defensive rebounding and then really pushing the ball, pressing like they did. And I know they got to watch that skip pass to the corner because that is deadly. And Memphis held them to 5 threes, and they did not shoot at a good percentage. They sort of gave Golden more room inside and said, we'll let you beat us, but we won't let the three. I don't know if they'll compromise on that at all in this game, but it should be a lot of fun. Last I looked at, there's no line, but Ken Palm had listed this game as, I think, 7 points would be the difference with Florida Atlantic. And I get that. Memphis was a 1.5-point underdog at home and obviously took care of business. But if you listen to the Tigers in the press conference yesterday, Penny Hardaway was talking and said some interesting things, including, which I think got everybody's attention. He thought it was 60-40 or even maybe 70-30 that David Jones would be back. Nicholas Jourdain talked about the chemistry and how the ball is now flowing, which is why they've cut down on turnovers. They don't force as much, particularly David Jones, and what a gas it has been for him to play with Quinterly, who keeps things going. And he is saying that they really have figured out how, especially the three of them, the big three, Tomlin and Quinterly and Jones, have all learned how to play together. And honestly, Jourdain is the sort of the glue guy, the old Antonio Anderson, not quite that same role, but there is a team effect with that. So we shall wait and see. But if you win tomorrow and you sweep Florida Atlantic, clearly in the net the best team in the American, you probably will get a double bye. That has still yet to be determined. I think the Tigers are pretty well set now at 3, 4, and 5. They can't get 2 with the way that things have shaken down in the midweek games. But if they were to get that, they could get the double bye. And I would love to see them in the 4 or 5 position. Well, I'd want to see them in the 4 position because they get the double bye. But even if they're in the 5, they'll have to play 4 games in 4 days. But I want them to be on the side of playing USF, the number 1 seed, even though they've been so outstanding in this regular season. I remember Memphis had them up by 20 at home, and I think they would really be motivated for that game. And I believe if they beat Florida Atlantic, 1, maybe 2, but if you get to the finals, you should be in as an automatic qualifier. They're now in so many next 4 outs in all these bracketologists that you're feeling this win tomorrow, if you get it, would propel you into the AQ conversation, automatic qualifying. We will switch gears a little bit and talk baseball in a minute. I remind you, the Family Leisure Studios, well, they have moved. They are now in Boca. We'll call it South Florida. The South Florida Family Leisure Studios, but you know where the main one is. Family Leisure is at I-40 and Wooden Road, and right now they've got a sale going on where you go and you save money on swimming pools. And if you get in line right now, you'll be the first on the installation of these great above-ground pools. Patio sets, they've got so many new patio sets in. They did the floor model sale to move it out for these to come in, and there are discounts. You will love what you see. Pool tables, everything still reduced. All you got to do is get to I-40 and Wooden Road, and you will save on the newest and the greatest for your outdoor living. And this portion of the show also presented by our good friends at Homer Skelton Hyundai in Olive Branch. You know by now, they've redone that Santa Fe. The 2024 Santa Fe has become the ultimate family car. It's almost as big as their Palisade. This SUV has the quietest sound you've ever heard. It's got the sedan kind of ride, and it's got a standard third row. So it's big enough where you can really have a large family and go on a vacation, or you want to fold it down and you could take a foursome to golf without any problem. It's the ultimate new family car, totally redone. If you test drive it, you'll want it. So go see my friends at the corner of Highway 78 Lamar, and the first exit in Mississippi is Craft Road. Go see Chris True and all the gang and ask about that Santa Fe at Homer Skelton Hyundai. Let's talk a little baseball with our friend Tim Doolin. He joins us now. We touched on the major leagues. I want to get into college football, baseball with you, Tim, but I got to start with I don't know if you ever played with or against Steve Garvey, but you know, the old clean-cut image guy, he just put himself in position to run for Dianne Feinstein's seat for the U.S. Senate. He's going to be the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate seat. Do you see Senator – look, we've seen crazy things. Senator Tuberville? Holy cow. Senator Steve Garvey, you buy it?
Yeah, I don't know why I don't buy it. I mean, obviously, politics is – almost as crazy as this sports world, but just from me on the surface, I didn't play against him. He was older than me, but I did enjoy watching those Dodger teams back in the day with Davey Loeb, Steve Yeager, all the greats. But yeah, I don't know why. I mean, Tommy Tuberville, I think, has done a great job, and I would have never guessed that he would ever have gotten into politics. So, it doesn't matter to me if he was a Republican or Democrat. If they just do something good for the country,
Well, he certainly was a great first baseman. I have no idea what it'll be like as a politician. That'll be a battle to watch this November. We got so many of those to watch for sure. All right, let's get to baseball. Let's start with the University of Memphis. They competed in Oxford in a makeup game the other day. They have a new coach, Matt Reiser. Garrett Jackson, he went to Missouri. What's your sense of this new edition of Tigers baseball?
Well, I mean, I think it's really hard to tell, Will. I mean, we've had so much turnover, not just with coaches, but with players, with all the craziness with the portal and the NIL stuff. I definitely think Matt's bringing some energy, and I think Memphis is going to have to be, the fans are going to have to be a little patient, because here's the challenge you got, Will, and not just with the University of Memphis, but with a lot of mid-majors. I mean, and I know we've talked about it on the show before, but for instance, the last 2 years, you've lost your best player and one of your best pitchers to Mississippi State because they had great years for the Tigers. They wanted to be in the SEC. They wanted to play at a higher level, and they leave. So the challenge you've got with the NCAA allowing players to transfer more than once, be immediately eligible, and the fact that if you go to a mid-major, obviously you weren't ready for the SEC or Power 5 out of high school. So there's a reason for that, whether you're not physical enough, whether you're not mature enough, whatever it is. But then you go to a place like Memphis, and Matt Reisner's staff develops you, gets you better, and then all of a sudden you blow up. you're freaking leaving. I mean, and that's not, and it's like every time you look up and you say, man, we're gaining ground on it, and then all of a sudden, here comes the SEC getting one of your best players. So they've got to make some adjustments. I think one of the things they should do is eliminate the word scholarship, sign a player to a 2-year contract, give the player whatever, NIL, a car, full scholarship, whatever it is. That way you know you have said player for 2 years, and it gives you an opportunity to build some loyalty. Maybe the player meets his future wife and decides to stay. And it's going to make coaches more accountable to do what they say they're going to do when they recruit a player. It's just impossible to allow players to transfer more than once without having to sit out a year. And I'm for the player.
You're talking about it in a broad sense here, right? You're not just talking about the University of Memphis when you make these statements. You're talking about baseball
all
schools.
mid-majors that are trying like crazy to build a program and have some success. Here's a good example, Wolo, since we're talking about broad. Oral Roberts, would you agree, is in the same bucket as Memphis? They're a mid-major, right?
And they're in Big 12 country. Mm-hmm.
Well, they are, but Oral Roberts went to the College World Series last year with 17 players out of the portal. So, can you do it? Yeah, you can do it, but what are you going to do the next year? Go get 17 more?
So let me ask you this. Did Oral Roberts invest a ton of money? What's the economic model for a sport that makes no money? How can you afford to give a car and money to a 2-year contract to a kid?
You can't, and I don't think Oral Roberts went at it that way. I think they identified players, i.e., like they over the last several years, they've been identifying players at 13, Wolo. And so I've got some of them that they've been on and tried to get a verbal commitment. Well, now colleges, mid-major and up, they're not recruiting as many high school players. They're recruiting out of the portal. So they have someone on their staff that is identifying college players that are currently playing, that are putting up big numbers, that fall in a B bucket. The A bucket, you're not getting him. He's going to the SEC or the Big 12. So don't even waste your time trying to get that guy because you don't have any money, to your point. So you got to just do a better job of recruiting in a different format.
Here's my question, if you know the answer. I don't know if you do, but how did Oral Roberts, look, I like Tulsa. I think it's a nice town, but how did Tulsa attract 17 portal guys that they identified to come there unless they paid them a bunch of NIL money?
I'm telling you, I know their staff. They didn't pay them. They don't have the money. You have to have an energetic staff. You have to have salesmen that are on your staff, and you have to have developers of talent. If you've got a track record of being able to develop a player, it makes it more intriguing for a player to leave where he's at, to come play with you, and to buy into whatever you're selling. And those 17 did, and guess where they ended up? Omaha.
College World Series.
It can happen. It's not easy, but it's still not a fair playing field for the likes of Memphis and others.
Right, and the Big 12 is a good conference too, and that's where Tulsa does not play baseball, believe it or not, even though I think at one point in the 70s actually went to the College World Series. I have no idea why Tulsa, which of course is an American Athletic Conference member, a conference brother, so to speak, doesn't play baseball. So that area is owned by Oral Roberts. Not that they really own it, because that's Big 12 country. Oklahoma State, sort of, even to a certain extent, Wichita State is a better program in that area with past history. So I guess it can be done. Is the SEC, though, is that the number one baseball college conference?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, and I'm glad you led me into that, because here we go. Nothing new, even though it's early in the season. They haven't started SEC play till next week. In the top 10, you have Arkansas, LSU, Florida, Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. So you have 6 of the top 10. Then you got Alabama at 15 and Auburn at 19. So you got 8 teams in the top 20. So, yes, to answer your question.
6 of top 10 and 8 in the top 20. That's pretty impressive. What would be considered the number 2 baseball conference?
Geez, that's a good one. It drops off from there, obviously. I think probably the Big 12 at the moment. You got TCU, you got Oklahoma. Obviously, they're leaving. Texas, obviously, they're leaving. You got Oklahoma State. So yeah, I mean, I would say probably the Big 12.
That's pretty impressive. So let's talk about the local schools right on this radio station. I heard Eli Savoy. Most of the time, though, you'll be listening to Ole Miss baseball, and they beat the Tigers the other night in a pretty competitive game. That's for sure. Tell me about Ole Miss. Where are they in the hierarchy? Where were they picked in the preseason?
Well, I don't think they were picked that high, and they've struggled early on. Typically, when you look at these, especially the SEC teams, you can pretty well predict. I've known Mike for a long time. I mean, and not that he's the only one that does this model. Is what they try to do is going into SEC play. They typically want to be somewhere around, like 19 and 3 or somewhere in that, and then they say, okay, if we play 500 in the SEC, we're hosting a regional. It's pretty simple math. Well, I think they're like 6-5, so they're not off to a good start, and I think that they've got some really good young arms, but they're still immature. One of them from Collierville High School, Grayson Sonia, he's going to be a first rounder. His electric arm hasn't been as consistent as I'm sure he would like, but he's definitely a guy. And look, Ole Miss, the last couple of years, well, really 2 years ago when they went to the College World Series and won it, they were like doing terrible halfway through the season, and then Mike turned it around. So never underestimate it. Mississippi State's in the same bucket again, and I would be shocked if Chris Lemonis survives it.
Wow. It was, 2-3 years ago that they won the College World Series?
I think it was like 3 years ago. They haven't been to the SEC in the last 2 years. And then here's the tough part. Well, they're like, I think they're like 6-5 or something as well, and have lost some games to teams you should never lose to. And then, oh, by the way, we start SEC play next weekend in their first 3 series: A&M, LSU, and Vanderbilt. So you could easily look up and they be 2-7, 1-8. Right out of the chute in the first 3 weeks of SEC, and then you're basically toast. I mean, you'd have to win every SEC series moving forward, and he's not going to do that.
You mentioned Mike Bianco. How many years now has he been
gosh.
there? I think he was there when your son originally went there.
Before then. Way before then. I mean, Drew Pomerantz, he's been there 20-plus years. I know that. Man,
that's a long tenure in that particular league. That is for sure. You mentioned Arkansas. Is that the highest-ranked SEC team?
Yes, Arkansas is number 2. You got LSU 3, Florida 4, TCU 5, Oregon State, and then A&M, Tennessee, and Vandy 7, 8, and 9, rounding it out. Alabama.
What makes Arkansas so good? I know they've been
incredible. I would tell you that's a great question. Dave Van Horn, longtime friend, known him forever, is one of the most transparent, credible, great personality, great blend. I would say he's a really good blend of the college coach and a major league manager. And he is who he is. Players can play for a guy like that because they know that he's going to be the same all the time. And obviously great facilities, great fan base, track record of having, guys go to the major leagues, as well as having a great staff of guys that are really good instructors and developers. So I love Dave Horn. He's a great man.
And then finally, Tennessee, top 20. What's their strength? I mean, they've been good for a few years now. Tony's done a great job of bringing. When he was hired from Arkansas, actually from Dave Van Horn. Great recruiting guy, very personal, understands the game, has a great staff. His pitching coach actually is so old he coached me on the USA team. And Frank is one of the probably top 3 pitching coaches in the country. So again, you go out and figure out what wins, pitching and defense. I got to go get the best pitching guy I can get. It's important to begin with, but
when we talked about previously about the portal, you're a pitcher, you're at a mid-major, you've blown up at your conference, you want to prove to pro teams that you can pitch and have success in the best league. So the reason why you're leaving is not for the NIL. You're leaving because you want to play in the best league and be developed to actually make money in the draft. Well, we got Frank Anderson, right? And so to me, your pitching coach is probably the most important guy, second to you.
All right. I'm putting a gun to your head. Who wins the SEC?
Oh, gosh. Go ahead and shoot me because there's too many good teams. I mean, you just don't know. And look, the SEC tournament's not relevant to these guys. It's all positioning, getting ready for the regional and super regionals. Right. But any of those teams could win the tournament because it's just a matter of who's playing hot at the right time and how it all lines up. But I can assure you're going to see probably six SEC teams hosting regionals.
Man,
for sure. Maybe
you host
more.
that many, you got a really good shot at getting at least 4 to Omaha. Tim Doolin, as always, we appreciate it. I love our conversations. We'll do it again next Friday.
All right, Wolo. Have a good weekend.
You too. Tim Doolin. On baseball, he's brought to you in part by the Spirit Shop. That's Eddie Connor's place. You know Eddie loves to talk about spirits. Walk in, ask a question. What's the newest wine that's up and coming? Maybe even has a local tie to it. He's got all the local beers in the Spirit Shop right there at Poplar and St. Nick, the little log cabin you pass by forever, right down from Clark Tower. And inside, you'll go in, you will not believe all the product that is there, and you will love the education that Eddie and his staff will give you. If you want to ask about a valuable bourbon or tequila that you're not sure about, he's got the bargains, the middle ground, he's got the rare. He's got everything at the Spirit Shop. We pause for a second. When we come back to Chicago, we will go. Our agent from Priority Sports, that's Andy Schiffman on the NBA, and he is next.
We are real sports talk. Sports 56 WHBQ. Available on your radio dial at 560 AM and 98.5 FM, as well as around the world online at sports56whbq.com. Take us with you everywhere by downloading the Sports 56 app. And at home, just say, Alexa, play Sports 56. Wherever you are, stay tuned in to Real Sports Talk. Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
I wish you could see the beautiful azaleas and dogwoods in bloom. This is Sheldon Rosengarten with Mark's Benstorff Realtors. I can't tell you how many times clients in November have told me that the flowers are truly breathtaking and the pool sparkles, but in November, it won't. But I say rush the season. Take photos in March, April when the azaleas are in full bloom, and take pictures of the pool when it's open. And maybe show some kids in the pool playing. So when you sell your home in the winter months, people don't have to use their imagination. They can see the beauty of your home as you see it. And when you're taking your pictures and thinking of selling at some point in the future, remember what people often say. When you want the job done, call Shell Done. You can reach me at memphisrelocate.com or 483-0546. At Sheldon Rosengarten, the worst golfer in town, at 483-0546 or memphisrelocate.com.
We're going abroad for the first time in years. To Spain. So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babbel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish. Gracias, Babbel.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
Uncorn flavored Corky's barbecue.
Hi, this is Jimmy Stovall with Corky's Barbecue. We have been serving up our legendary barbecue for more than 39 years, right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Whether you're dining in, picking up in our drive-thru, or serving our famous barbecue at your office or home, with Corky's Party Pack, you are the hit of the party. Barbecue pulled pork, baked beans, coleslaw, barbecue sauce, and buns, starting at only $8.49 per person. And as you know, we send plenty of food. You never have to worry about running out with Corky.
Uncorn flavored Corky's barbecue.
Hi, this is Jimmy Stovall with Corky's Barbecue. We have been serving up our legendary barbecue for more than 39 years, right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Whether you're dining in, picking up in our drive-thru, or serving our famous barbecue at your office or home, with Corky's Party Pack, you are the hit of the party. Barbecue pulled pork, baked beans, coleslaw, barbecue sauce, and buns, starting at only $8.49 per person. And as you know, we send plenty of food. You never have to worry about running out with Corky.
Now back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56, presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
Welcome back to Boca. We head to Chicago here momentarily. We'll talk with Andy Schiffman, our agent. He's brought to you by the Athlon Insurance Team. You know, man, he's got a great philosophy on protecting you and your family. It's called getting to know you. It's called collaboration. He wants to know exactly what's important to you and your family, what's the most important thing for him to really keep an eye on, to protect. Conversations take place. And then he figures out your budget and what's the best way to protect your home or your car or your future with life insurance. And he works that same way with small to mid-sized businesses. He'll get to know you, your employees, what your product is, forecast you out a little bit, what's your budget, and then he finds the commercial insurance that will protect your business. All you got to do is call 901-386-GER. That's because they're big Tiger fans. 901-386-4777. Let him get to know you so he can protect you the correct way, the collaborative way. That's the way they do it with the Athlon Insurance Team. Let's go to Chicago. Our friend Andy Schiffman standing by. The Grizzlies just made a major move. Andy, they've signed Wenyen Gabriel to a 10-day contract. That's what it's come to in this league. There are two things that really strike me. All the injuries this year. You know, Cat's getting meniscus surgery now. Curry went down with an ankle. LeBron went down with an ankle. The Grizzlies are playing Atlanta tonight without Trae Young. They played the Sixers without Maxey and Embiid. Am I crazy, or with all this load management and everything, all the precautions that you take, all the new science, all the 4-star, 5-star hotels and all the charter jets, we got more injuries now than we've ever had. Is that fair?
I think it's a fair statement, David. I think it's exacerbated when you get past the trade deadline into the crunch time of the season. And you even saw it just recently with Karl Anthony Towns going down with a meniscus tear. And surprisingly, the Timberwolves still came back and won a huge game yesterday over Indiana. But you've got stars going down with major injuries. I wish I could tell you the reason for that. To your point, with all of these spaced out games and load management is a concern. It's a topic of conversation. As you said, clearly that doesn't solve the problem. And it's never going to solve the problem. And I think anyone that thinks that will is naive in this industry, because there's these guys are professional athletes busting their butts out there for really more than 82 games throughout the year. When you talk about training camp, you talk about the ramp up that it takes to get to training camp. Many of these players and these stars we're talking about are playing well into May and June during the playoff. And so you can make load management a focus all you want, and for sure it's not going to hurt. But I just don't think there's any way to avoid these injuries season after season.
I just wonder if it's now the pace of the game and they're playing 82 games. I really don't know the answer to it.
And look, a lot of these guys, too, they're getting older. That's another factor in all this.
Well, they start playing younger, so they get more games on them. I mean, LeBron got 40,000 points, but how many games has he played in the NBA now? I mean, I think because you start playing now at 18, 19 instead of 22, 23, you're adding all those games on the front end. That's wear and tear on your body. That's the only other thing I can really think about, other than, because I don't believe in the load management thing. I believe it's the pace of the game. It used to be when I was young and watching the NBA, they played really hard on defense and in set plays on offense, but they would walk the ball up. They did not run as much as they do now.
It's really incredible, and that's when you look at go back and take a snapshot of the average points per game in the NBA 10, 15 years ago, probably even really 6 or 7 years ago compared to today. And then you almost think what could become in the next couple of years when you're going to talk about average points per game, potentially 120, 130, somewhere in that realm. And just the other night you saw Boston demolish Golden State and hang 140 points on the board. And that's not uncommon in today's league. You see teams getting close to that mark here and there throughout a regular NBA season.
What do you think is the cause of that? Is that poor defense or lack of effort on that side of the court? Or is this just because offenses and athleticism have become so proficient?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think you got pace of the game has significantly increased. Every season, front offices around the NBA are evaluating where they need to get better, and they have all of these internal advanced statistical rankings. And one of those rankings and factors, obviously, is pace, offensive points per 100 possessions, and then how you rank among all 30 NBA teams in that statistic. And then you go out there and you try and tweak your roster and your offensive system to elevate that stat to the next year. And you see that every season, and it's not really like the top end of that ranking falls off. It's just everyone in the bottom half tries to, as I mentioned, find ways to then increase their own number of possessions per game and their pace during a basketball game. And so I think you have that combined with everyone now coming into the league is quicker, more athletic, and stronger. You know, you think about, obviously, early 2000s, obviously in the 90s, you can get away if you're a slow-footed 6'9", 6'10" big man that's going to jog up and down the court, but you're going to camp yourself underneath the basket, just rebound and block shots. You can get away with being an NBA player if that's your game. In today's NBA, there's no chance. You have to be athletic. You have to be able to show you can shoot the ball from three. You have to be bouncy and quick off your feet. And really, that's every NBA player, just about, with the exception of maybe a couple that are just situational players. And maybe if they weren't on their own roster, they wouldn't have a spot in the NBA.
The Grizzlies head coach, Taylor Jenkins, now with 201 victories. He's the second all-time winningest coach. He's going to pass Lionel Hollins next year. He's 13 wins away. I mentioned the Wenyen Gabriel signing today, another 10-day contract, because he's look, I know he's 19 games under 500, but what he's done is he's taken all these new players, these 10-day contracts, two-way guys. You've got one player, Jaren Jackson Jr., that could play tonight against Atlanta, that's on the original roster. I mean, it's been the craziest year. Why does Taylor Jenkins, in your mind, not get some of the attention or as much as he probably should on a national basis? What do you think the perception around the league is of Taylor Jenkins?
Well, look, I think the perception around the league is that Taylor Jenkins is a phenomenal coach. I think he's getting zero national attention. It's pretty easy to answer this year because the team is 22-41, and no one is excited to turn on the TV and watch the Grizzlies with who they're throwing out there. I mean, even tonight, you've got a Trae Young-less Hawks team, and you've got a Ja Morant list, plus everyone else the Grizzlies are missing out there in what really is a meaningless NBA game for Memphis. But I think overall, I know Taylor is very well respected. He's only, only 3 or 4 years into his tenure, I feel like, as an NBA head coach. And he's an NBA head coach for a reason, because he is so well respected. And none of that gets lost in all this season, right? None of that goes away. You are only as good as the players you put out there on the court, in my opinion, right? You could be the world's best NBA coach, but if you don't have players to back it up and compete, you're not going to go very far. Your ceiling is pretty limited, and I think that's what you see with the Grizzlies. So the hope and the expectation is in the fall, into training camp, if you're Taylor Jenkins, you've got a fully healthy roster, and you can get back to where you were a year ago, and you can kind of get back to matching the hype that you had prior to this season with everything going on with Ja and all of these injuries. It really is mind-boggling when you look up and you just feel like, if you're a Grizzlies fan, when it rains, it pours. When you see game after game, even when guys do come back healthy, someone else goes down or they get re-injured, and it feels like it's only happening to the Grizzlies. Reality is, look, that happens around the league. I just think it's definitely been exacerbated because it's happening to the Grizzlies' core players.
Yeah. It's nuts. Like a guy like Wenyen Gabriel, who's not played 1 second in the Memphis system. They may only have 8 or 9 guys that they could play tonight. He may actually see playing time tonight. I really don't know that for a fact, but it would not shock me. And what Taylor Jenkins has done to make this team even competitive with this group has been amazing to me. All right, here comes Denver, now 1 game behind Minnesota and OKC. They're looking beat Boston, the best team in the league, last night. Joker, let's face it, is this team. They're so focused, by the way, Andy, they canceled their visit to the White House because they want to be set. I think they play Minnesota the next day or something like that. Is this team going to repeat?
Man, last night was a huge statement. They swept the season series now against the Celtics. Are they going to? I wish I was Nostradamus. I could tell you definitively. I think they have just as good a chance as anyone, and anyone for me being the Celtics to win a championship. You've heard me talk about the Clippers. I really like them. I think they've got a great chance. And Denver is absolutely right there. I think you cannot go wrong with any one of those three. And last night you saw why Jokic is the MVP. Talk about MVP candidate every single year for a reason. And the guy had a triple-double with no turnovers in a monster game, probably one of the most important games of the season for Denver. And they even fended off Jaylen Brown, who dropped, I think he had 42 points, 41 points. So it was a pretty big statement win for Denver. So, yeah, I think they're right there. I would not be surprised at all if you see these two teams match up in the finals in June, those two teams being Denver and Boston. And you look at the West right now, you alluded to Minnesota. Again, what does losing Karl Anthony Towns now with the meniscus injury do for this first-place team in the West? Yes,
well, they are saying
talented.
He'll be back early playoffs because they're going to do. It must be a scope that they're going to do, right? I don't think it's major surgery.
You would imagine
for the
prepare,
meniscus,
right?
So they're saying he'll be back early playoff rounds.
That's the hope. We'll see. I mean, look, for sure they're going to slip a little bit though. They're right there. Half a game over OKC? I think Denver's going to surpass OKC, and I think the Clippers could as well. I mean, it's really tight in the top soda, OKC, Denver, and the Clippers.
All right, so we got those. We got, obviously, Boston in the East. I don't see anybody catching them. If there is, maybe it'll be Milwaukee. Is there anybody else that's a dark horse team that, like sort of Denver was last year, came not exactly out of nowhere, but that you think could win the NBA championship?
Man, winning the NBA championship, I don't really think so. The only outlier I would say, Dave, is if they get their big three healthy. Phoenix, they're 37-26. They're 7 games back right now, first place. They're without Devin Booker right now. But when they have the three-headed monster in our guy Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Durant, and they also added one of our other guys at the trade deadline who's been a really nice acquisition for them, Royce O'Neal. They're really a dangerous team. And are they dangerous enough to compete for a title? Maybe. They could. But I don't necessarily know if I put them in that category just yet. I think they're definitely talented to get to the Western Conference Finals. I think they're definitely talented enough to potentially get to the finals. And then out in the East, one team that I do like when they are fully healthy, really two teams, Cleveland and New York. And you do not see a fully healthy Cleveland Cavaliers team right now, nor do you see a fully healthy New York Knicks team with Jalen Brunson out. But I've watched a lot of New York. I've got Miles McBride on that team. And when you have a healthy Jalen Brunson, they are really, really tough to beat. Obviously, Julius Randle's been out. And really the same thing with Cleveland. When you've got a healthy Donovan Mitchell back, with all the shooting they've added, with the bigs they have in Mobley and Jared Allen, and you bring in Darius Garland, that's a lot of offensive firepower. So I think those two teams, dark horses in the sense that they could really make a rise to compete with Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals, and even in Milwaukee. I don't necessarily know if I see them coming out of the East, but I think they could make some noise in the playoff.
Last thing really quick. We got to mention that Luka Doncic had his 4th consecutive 35-point triple-double last night. Could we see, because you haven't even mentioned Dallas at all in any of these scenarios of competing for titles or even deep playoff runs, could we see an MVP coming from an average team? Because he's certainly putting up numbers.
He is, but I just think the way the league goes, they're going to defer to a winning organization. That's just me. He is putting up numbers. I'm just kind of looking at their record overall in recent games. They did really well in February, then they come out in March and lose 3 of their first 4. They're likely going to get a win tomorrow when they're in Detroit, and then they go to Chicago, which is not going to be easy. Chicago's played really well as of late, beating Sacramento and Golden State. And so he has to do everything for that team, right? He puts the team on his back. Yes, you have Kyrie, but really outside of Luka, again, he's doing everything in his power, and they're still losing, relatively speaking. They won last night over Miami, but generally speaking, they're hanging on to an 8th seed right now. They should make the playoffs. I just don't see the league deferring to Luka Doncic on a relatively mediocre NBA team when you do have the likes of Giannis, of Tatum, of Jokic, all on really high-level winning teams.
I think that's spot on, as always. Thank you so much, Andy. We'll do this again next Friday.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
That's our agent in Chicago. That is Andy Schiffman, brought to you by Sheldon. So we're here in March, and then April and May. They're not far behind. So is June. And Sheldon with Mark Spensdorf Realtors is anticipating a really hot real estate market, especially with so much activity going on right after the first of the year. Sheldon Rosengarten, well, he knows it all. He can tell you one thing he sees, that when owners are not really ready to put their homes on the market and still do it, is a mistake. He's a firm believer in guiding clients about preparation and presentation before they let anybody see their home. With those principles that he absolutely will tell you, being sensitive to the market, he can see people getting better prices, and sooner you get to the closing table with Sheldon. That's why people often say you want the job done, you call Sheldon. If you or someone you know are thinking of selling, Sheldon himself will say talk to 2 or 3 real estate agents. Just make sure he's one of them. For a confidential discussion, call him, 483-0546, or you can reach him at memphisrelocate.com. Sheldon Rosengarten. Back to end our week with Brian Dacus. We talk Tigers in just a minute.
Add a little fun to your lunch break. Join Johnny Radio for Sports 56 Happy Hour from 11 to 1 every weekday on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Okay, so there are some rules about what someone can and cannot say on a commercial. For one thing, you have to tell the truth, something not everyone necessarily follows to the letter. And there are a couple of phrases we're absolutely not supposed to say. For example, this is March, and this is an ad for Bell Tavern, Memphis' perfect bar. As you know, while Bell Tavern isn't a sports bar, there are always sports playing on the TVs. And in March, there is one particular basketball event that Memphians really love. But I can't say the name of it. I can say Madness, and I can say March, but I can't say, well, you get the idea. Anyway, if you want to enjoy the third month of the year craziness, Bell Tavern's the place.
5-Ash Roofing, it's what we do. Roofing and siding, gutters too. We're the pros you can trust to get it done right. Call on us, 5-Ash Roofing, the name to know. 5-Ash Roofing, the only way to go. 5-Ash Roofing, it's what we do. 5-Ash Roofing.
Is that not the corniest thing you've ever heard? Can you believe I paid good money for that silly jingle? Well, the experts say make it memorable, and I think I got my money's worth. 5-Ash Roof Services, proud partner of the Memphis Tigers and the official roofer of the Tigers home team. 5-Ash Roofing, 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com.
5-Ash Roofing, it's what we do. We're here for you.
We're going abroad for the first time in years. To Spain. So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babbel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish. Gracias, Babbel.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
Hello?
Hey, little sis. Did you get your W-2 yet?
Yes, I did.
Well, you know last year when I told you to file early to get your refund quick?
Yes, I remember.
Well, go ahead and call now, and you can get your refund fast.
Thanks. That's why I love you. Always looking out for your little sis.
To get your taxes filed quick and get your refund fast, go to Brenton Tax Service, located in Midtown Memphis on Madison Avenue. We may not be related to you, but at Brenton Tax Service, we protect you like family.
Now back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56, presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
You listen to him every day from 3 to 6 on Sports Time with Brett Norsworthy. He is Brian Dacus. We talk Tigers to end our Fridays every week. Bryant, what did you make out of Penny Hardaway's statements yesterday? David Jones, 60-40, 70-30. He's coming back. You buying or selling?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard, especially this day and age of college basketball, to trust anything with the transfer portal and with so many decisions these guys have to make. I hope that it's the chances are that good, but, I mean, you look at the numbers he's putting up. You look at how good he's playing. I know, he's not on a ton of mock drafts right now, but I'd be surprised if there wasn't a team that would want to go out and maybe take him in the second round or give him something. And it's the question, David Jones has been in college for a while, and at sometimes, guys are just tired of the day-to-day college life and want to go out and try to play professionally. So I hope he comes back. That'd be huge, especially after hearing last week that Nick Jourdain plans on coming back. I think that would be two guys that would be great to build the roster around next year, but I don't know. I'm still a little skeptical.
You know what? The better he plays, the less chances you have of keeping him. Like if he scores 25, 30 points, gets a double-double, which would be his 11th tomorrow, at FAU on CBS TV, that goes a long way to helping him out. Somebody's going to look at that and go, you know what? He's cut down on his turnovers a little bit. He's shooting unbelievable 40% or somewhere in that neighborhood from three-point range. That was an area he was not quite as adept at DePaul or at St. John's, and so his stock goes up. But the Tigers, if they win tomorrow against FAU, their stock goes up. I don't know that they're absolutely an automatic qualifier, but it would certainly go a long, long way to getting them there. So the Tigers took the first game, 78-74 at home. They did a great job of limiting FAU. I think they only hit 5 threes in that game. What do you think, Brian Takis, is going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I know I was watching Florida Atlantic last weekend when they played Tulane at home, and I think on the broadcast they said that the students had been out there tailgating since like 7 o'clock in the morning, so it was a very rowdy environment inside. I'm sure it's going to be even more of a rowdy environment tomorrow against the Tigers. I know they're doing a red out and all that stuff, so it should be a really good environment that the Tigers are walking into. So, I remember saying it before the FAU game. Memphis is going to have to play their A game, and they certainly brought it here at home, but they're going to have to carry that on the road. And, we've seen kind of different performances on the road for this Tiger team. We saw them, go to East Carolina and really dominate, but, we remember what happened in those 2 Texas games where they really struggled on the road. So, they're going to have to bring their A game, but I think, if they can play with the same energy that they've played with over these last handful of games, I think it's going to be an unbelievable game tomorrow.
The T-shirts, by the way, the theme is going to be Protect Paradise. Yeah. So if the Tigers win tomorrow, well, would I get in trouble if I said the Tigers have violated paradise?
I mean, why not? If they're printing it on their shirts, defend paradise, why not? I mean, it's interesting. Certainly Boca's a beautiful place, but I don't know. I thought that was a little funny to see those shirts.
Yeah, and Penny has spoken about. There is a bit of arrogance from the 1 year that Florida Atlantic has had. That they talk quite a bit, and they're really very proud of themselves. And they weren't talking much after the Memphis game, but hey, you mentioned you watched some of the Tulane FAU game. I saw that too. They talk so much that they really get into it, and sometimes with all close to altercations because of that chippiness. And Penny warned this team before the first game about it, because Nick Jourdain talked about that yesterday.
Yeah, and you're gonna. I think we saw it, here at halftime in that game, Memphis versus FAU, where both teams were trying to kind of get to their locker rooms, and a couple guys started chirping for FAU, and there was kind of a little bit of a standoff before both teams went in. I mean, this one's gonna be even more. I mean, both teams have something to play for, and I think after what happened here in Memphis, FAU's gonna want revenge. Memphis obviously has a lot to play for, being right outside on the bubble, trying to get in position to get a bye for the conference tournament. So it very well could be a chippy game tomorrow. And you're right. FAU talks a lot, and they kind of get a little chippy sometimes.
Well, they're gonna have to stay and do as good a job on the perimeter as they did in the first game. And I know they're trying to figure out something with Golden. This is where Malcolm Dandridge would really help you. 5 fouls and the ability to bang a little bit more with Golden. Jordan Brown did not play well in that game, and just for the record here, Dandridge is not on this trip, so he's not going to play. That'll be wild. I'll tell you what'll really be wild is going to be the American Athletic Conference tournament. I think there's 6, maybe 7 teams that could win. Here we go down the stretch, and we don't even know the seeding yet.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different tie breaks and things, and it probably won't be settled until Sunday. When I think it's SMU and UAB play on that day. I know there's a game on Sunday, and no one knows for sure how this thing will all shake out. What do you expect at the American?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, it's going to be wild. I mean, just looking at yesterday, I found a kind of a chart that had the percentages for every seed for every team in the conference. And for the Tigers, 3, 4, 5, 6, all up on the table. I think their best percentage was 5th place. So right outside of the buys for the top 4. I think a lot of that has to do with this was using KenPom metrics, and I believe KenPom projects Memphis to lose tomorrow. So I think a lot of that has to do with those metrics. But it's going to be crazy. I mean, like you said, it's so wide open, it feels like. Only USF has the first place locked up, kind of everything behind that. And you've seen crazy outcomes all season long. I mean, East Carolina and SMU just went to overtime last night. UTSA, beat somebody they weren't supposed to beat last week. You never know what to expect in these games. Nobody expected what USF is doing. So it should be a really fun tournament next week.
I think it's going to be incredible. So the number 5 projection is with a loss at FAU?
I believe so. I don't know that for sure. I just know that they cited KenPom on this, and I know KenPom projects FAU to win tomorrow. So I'm assuming when it's going by projecting seeds, it's using that loss tomorrow.
Well, you know what? I don't mind. I want 4.
Yeah.
Because I want to play USF in the semis. 5 means you got to play 4 games in 4 days, so you prefer 4. But absolutely. I do want that positioning where you're going to play USF in the semis. Brian Takis, as always, we appreciate it. I know everybody will be listening from 3 to 6 today. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Dave.
That'll do it for us here in Boca. Brian Takis every week puts an end to this show, and is brought to you by Grind City Brewing, taking care of beerness in Memphis with the best products like the Pilsner, Poppy's Pills, just what the doctor ordered, or the Godhopper, the Pale Ale. If you like amber lagers, there's the Thaddeus. If you're a Blue Moonish kind of a person, there's the Belgian-style wheat ale they call Belga, or there's the Tiger Tail. That's the craft malt liquor that is pretty unique with a little extra alcoholic kick, you could say. All great products, and it's a great place to go visit. On a beautiful day, nothing better than going just north of downtown, looking at the skyline, looking at the bridges in this beautiful building with terrific picnic grounds. It was a dream of a father and son. It's become a reality. It's Grind City Brewing taking care of business in Memphis. We'll talk to all of you on Monday. Johnny Radio is right around the corner. Have a great weekend, everybody.